Okay, Derek, you're live.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the City of Costa Mesa's virtual Earth Day event. We're really looking forward to today. We've got a lot of great things going on, and we're glad to have you. Today is Earth Day. It's the 51st anniversary of what is known as the spark of the modern environmental movement. And today is a day to celebrate Earth and celebrate our community, and to do it with the City of Costa Mesa and to do it with community members. So today we've got an hour to learn about what you can do to make every day more sustainable, to live a more sustainable life. It's better for the planet and better and good for our future. I'm Derek Sabori. I'm a sustainability consultant, educator, and entrepreneur living and working in the City of Costa Mesa. I love it here. I've lived here for many, many years, worked here for all those years as well. But today we have a panel discussions comprised of city employees and residents on the future of mobility, waste reduction, and climate action. And today we're going to hear from Costa Mesa voices on how we can help tackle these global challenges through local action. And we want to move towards a more sustainable community and more sustainable and living cities, more sustainable lives. So before we get started though, here to say a few words and introduce a really fun video that we have on the topic to get us started. Mayor John Stevens. As a resident of Costa Mesa since 1989 and a very active community member all through those years, Mayor Stevens served 4 years on City Council and was recently appointed as mayor in March. And of course, is a fan of the city's sustainability initiatives. Mayor Stevens, want to take it away for us?
Yes, thank you very much, Derek. It's a pleasure to be here and welcome everyone to this webinar. I thank all the panelists, and Earth Day is recognized every year to raise awareness of our environmental challenges and inspire people to take action on environmental protection. This year's Earth Day the theme is Restore Our Earth. And we are hosting this Earth Day seminar to engage Costa Mesa residents in the community. I just want to say, I'm going to go off script here, and I'm going to say, we do in Costa Mesa make a great commitment to the earth. We're a tree city. Arbor Day is coming up on April 30th. I signed 2 proclamations earlier this week, one for Earth Day, one for Arbor Day. We did recognize both days in our city council meeting. And beyond the ceremony, it's a true commitment in Costa Mesa. We have 32 parks that we're very proud of. We have Fairview Park, which is an absolute jewel in our community that you'll hear about. But we also have the people that are making a commitment to the environment and to the earth and to trees. And those include our council members, especially Arliss Reynolds, who's on this panel, Andrea Marr, who was instrumental in suggesting that we have a sustainability manager, who's Salem Afaworki, who you're going to hear from. And at our council meeting also earlier this week, we had a presentation about the great work that's being done in sustainability and energy savings and these very issues that we're here to talk about today by Salem's team and Salem herself. So we honor this commitment from the council through the staff, and I thank the staff for the great work that they do. Cynthia de Agosta at Fairview Park. It's not easy. There are issues at that park with preserving the vernal pools that we've dealt with, preserving our wetlands, and addressing the issues with mosquitoes. We have an issue regarding the flyers at the park. We're always focused on these issues and trying to protect our earth. And we thank our community and all the volunteers that make it work. So now, without further ado, I will introduce this video, which is going to depict what sustainability means in Costa Mesa.
Living responsibly so I can leave a better future for all of my amazing nieces and nephews and all the youth in my life.
Sustainability is balance.
Pollution is making our world out of balance. I look for ways each day to lower my carbon footprint and have a global solution. My favorite, putting a price on carbon.
Sustainability to me means creating a healthier and safer environment for generations to come.
Sustainability means to me what we are as a family. We do what we can to preserve the earth. Especially on Earth Day, you have to notice that most things around you are not doing that.
For me, it's been measure of it by itself. Like we gotta help the environment to sustain for the coming future generation, so they can even have leisure about.
So sustainability to me means being very thoughtful about how we use or impact our resources, such as clean air and water, energy, even our money, so that we make sure that those resources are still available for future generations.
For me, sustainability means to live a life of minimal impact on the people and the environment around you, as well as globally.
For me, sustainability means meeting our own needs without depleting our natural resources or affecting future generations.
Sustainability to me means getting more of the things we love and less of the things we don't. For example, I'm a skier. If we eliminate carbon emissions, we can have good skiing and reduce catastrophic wildfires.
I've been inspired by my religion to walk gently on the earth. And so sustainability means to me mulching instead of having grass. Supporting the indigenous caretakers of this land by planting native seeds and reusing materials, and also water harvesting.
Just do something, anything, just get started. Watch an environmental movie with your family or start a garden. Get out of your car and bike more or join an environmental group. Just do one thing at a time.
So let's be more aware of air and water pollution. Join me on a bike ride around town and support our local leaders for a clean and balanced world.
So the most important way to practice sustainability to me is to follow the reduce, reuse, recycle mantra. So really it's about how little can you actually consume in your day-to-day life, and then reducing how much you actually need, and then recycling what you do have to use.
We do what we can because we grow our own vegetables when we can. We have 2 electric cars and we have solar panels.
You can plant more and more trees around you. Actually, it makes you feel fresh. And we have to think about the one we have right now, we got to save them too.
One of my favorite ways is to reduce the amount of time that I drive. So if I can walk somewhere in the city, I walk. If I can bike somewhere in the city, I bike. And by reducing the amount that I drive, I'm reducing emissions and protecting clean air in Costa Mesa.
3 ways to live a more sustainable life are to 1, eat more locally sourced foods, 2, to buy used clothing and goods, and 3, to get involved in your city council meetings and volunteer groups in your local community.
Some of the actions that individuals can take are conserving water, turning off lights, and minimizing carbon emission by walking, biking, carpooling, or taking public transit.
The most important action you can take is to reduce and eliminate the use of fossil fuels. Individually, that is hard because fossil fuels are embedded into government policy. This leads us to change government policy to eliminate fossil fuels and save what we love. Finally, I encourage my neighbors to form mutual aid networks and support neighbors taking action to preserve the things you love.
Wow, so much good advice in there. A lot of, key words that we can remember: future generations, finding balance, being thoughtful, preserving resources, protecting resources, voting with your dollar, acting local. And sustainability is about not just the planet, not just the environment, but about people too. So do what you can and just get started. And so speaking of getting started, we're going to jump to our next section here, the future of mobility. It's clean, it's green, it's resilient. And we're really excited. As you know, us California residents, the state of California is really driving electric vehicle adoption, or EV adoption. By 2035, all new cars and passenger trucks sold in California will be zero emission vehicles. So that means, no more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which will be great. We need to reduce emissions and pull down our greenhouse gas emissions. But transportation currently accounts for more than 50% of California's greenhouse gas emissions. Zero emission vehicles will play a key part of California's clean innovation economy. This mandate will phase out all gasoline powered cars and drastically reduce demand for fossil fuel in California's fight against climate change. And you've seen the charging stations at City Hall, right? Well, I'm a former owner of a plug-in hybrid myself, and my next car will surely be a plug-in, but our panelists are city employees that work here at City Hall. They'll share their experiences on owning electric vehicles, the benefits of owning one, having workplace EV charging stations, and what their recommendations are for those of us considering EVs or electric vehicles. So I'm here with Judith Ortiz Luis. She's a senior programmer analyst at the Information Technology Department for the City of Costa Mesa. And Lee Chalkley, he's the Central Services Supervisor of Communication and Marketing Department at the City of Costa Mesa. Welcome to you both. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I've got a question for you. Let's start off and talk about being an EV owner. But maybe Judith, with you, let's start with you. But how long have you been an EV owner, and what prompted you to jump into that market?
I've been an EV owner since 2014, and this is my, currently I'm driving my third EV, fully electric, since 2014. What made me really jump into the EV bandwagon is really, first off, the cost of gas. As we've seen, cost of gas is like fluctuating and then increasing, and now even more increasing with an average of like $3, $3.35 at Costco, and that's considered low. To some I see at over $4. Another consideration that I took is the carpool sticker. I drive 60 miles round trip from work to here, and what normally will take me an hour and a half hours of driving if I'm not using the carpool lane, pre-COVID, it's 45 minutes. Now with the nice COVID traffic that we have, that 30 miles has reduced 25 to 35 minutes of driving for me using the carpool lane. So
wow.
Yeah, those are wonderful benefits for me.
Sure. So you're getting money back in your pocket and time back on your calendar, which is great. Lee,
Definitely.
how about you? How about you, Lee? How long have you been an owner, and why'd you go EV?
Yes, I'm a relative newcomer to the EV market. I've only been, I purchased my first electric vehicle 6 months ago. And really, I was looking for alternate forms of transportation. I looked at electric bicycles, I looked at golf carts, I looked at scooters. And I really came to the conclusion that initially I was looking for a secondary vehicle, and I felt like I had to make a personal commitment to change, because the oil companies and the dealerships, they really will not change voluntarily. It's up to us to make the change. And I felt a sense of inevitability for the electric market, and I just felt like it was the right thing to do at the time. Unlike Judith, I didn't do a lot of research, and but I do. I really enjoy all the benefits of it. I'm so glad that I made the change, and I just want to preface this by saying I am kind of a motorhead. I drive a 6-cylinder, horizontally opposed, flat six, manually transmission, and I love cars. But we could talk about some of the performance aspects if you want later. But there's no disadvantage over gasoline engines now, because the technology has come so far. But
right.
It's really, I felt like it was up to us to make the change and spare the change ourselves, and that's really what motivated me.
Definitely. Lee, how did you go about choosing the right EV for you?
Well, what I did was I approached it like it was a situational vehicle. Like, I knew what my commute was. I knew that City Hall had just installed chargers. I knew I could charge from home, and I knew my commute was only 10 miles a day, or 10 miles each way. So it really, to me, I didn't need to go out and buy, the top of the line electric vehicle. I just needed to fit that niche. But what I realized was when I had filled that niche, that I very rarely take my other car out the garage now.
Because the electric ones are so fun, right?
It's just so much more. The cleanliness to me is you realize the unnecessary, how unnecessary oil and all of those fluids and all of those chemicals. There's a sense of cleanliness when I drive. I feel like I'm actually helping instead of, adding to the pollution. So there's a real nice sense of accomplishment that comes with it as well. It's very gratifying.
I love that. Judith, do you feel the same way? And how did you go about choosing the specific model that you decided to go with?
I have 3 criteria that I had to meet. Number 1 is range. Second is affordability, and the style. Because I want to look good in it and not look like an IT person, geeky IT person, like how normally. So I want to show that IT people can be cool too in their EV vehicles. So of course the range, definitely the technology now has allowed for the range anxiety to be minimized, because like the car that I'm driving, it charges up a fully charged EV can go up to 238 to 250 miles on fully charged. So that takes away the range anxiety. Compared to 2014, my first EV was only 80 miles. So it has come a long way. Affordability, just think about it this way. I mean, the amount that I pay for lease is still cheaper than what I would have paid for gas monthly.
Wow. Jeez.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah, so it's definitely a win-win. And I mean, with the style, because it's the also I needed something that would accommodate the headspace, because I'm fairly tall. So, and it has to have ample leg room, because now my car is the primary car. We do have a second car, but now it's the primary car. So the kids have to be comfortable at the back of the car.
Yeah. So what so many things to consider in our last few seconds here. I would ask, were there any challenges, and what advice do you have to anybody who's interested in getting into this space and purchasing or leasing a vehicle like the ones you have? Judith, I'll let you start, and then I'll finish with Lee.
Yeah, so definitely if your driving commute is fairly short, I would have, first of all, advise lease as opposed to buying if you can afford it, because of the technology changing so fast. So you don't want to be stuck with an old technology car. Second, if you're driving fairly short, like what Lee does, I mean, it only makes sense to buy an electric car, because you only charge overnight once a week, and you could drive gas free for the whole week. And whatever money that you save on gas, you could use that in renting a fancy car when you go on a road trip. So that's the benefit.
There we go. Yeah, thank you. Lee, how about you? We'll finish with you.
I just, there is a couple of important points being a rookie and new to all of this. If you are thinking of purchasing an electric vehicle and you're specifically want to go in the carpool lane, or you want the tax rebates, I would recommend that you check with the California Air Resources Board for a list of eligible vehicles for the carpool lane, because believe it or not, all electric vehicles are not allowed in the carpool lane. And there's a list that's available from the Air Resources Board that you can go to their website and check. I would definitely check that first. And then there's also the tax rebates. Most of the larger electric car companies have already used up their 200,000 purchase mandate to give out the rebates. So if you're looking for the tax rebates, it's also good to check the list with the IRS of manufacturers that still offer the full $7,500 tax rebate. And with that, with all the new car companies coming out, you shouldn't have any problems getting that large tax rate while it's still available. But Tesla and all GM vehicles have already used up their allotment. So if you're looking for the tax break, you really need to look at other vehicles. If you're looking at the carpool advantage, which I got to say is absolutely fantastic, really check the vehicle first, because there is only certain types of electric vehicles that are allowed in the carpool lane. Well, like Judith said, do your research and experience the benefits. It's an incredible experience to be part of a change. Even being a relative newcomer, I feel like I'm doing my part in a small way.
Well, you both are. So thank you very much for sharing your stories with us. Really helpful. And we know that it is doing our part. We know that electric vehicles emit fewer emissions, and in the long run, they're a much better choice for us. It reminds me, we had a question come up in the Q&A box. That's a reminder to everybody. Put your questions in there. We will try to get to them if we can with a short answer. The specific one in there, Chris, I see your question. Probably a question that I can't address right here, right now in the short amount of time, but just asking as to other long-term benefits. But typically most LCA data, most data shows that EVs win in the long run and will help us combat climate change. So thank you, Lee and Jane. Thank you, Judith, for being here. And we're gonna move on to our next section. So thank you so much. Our next section here is trash in our aquatic environment, global challenge, local solutions. We know that everything is connected, the food we eat, the waste that we generate, the water we drink. Well, Kelly Dalton is an associate engineer in the Public Services Department here at the City of Costa Mesa with degrees in natural resources and land resources and environmental services, who manages a variety of engineering projects for the Public Services Department, in addition to coordinating the city's stormwater program. So Kelly will share the magnitude of the problem and the solutions we can take to preserve the health of our planet and our well-being. Kelly, take it away. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. So welcome to my presentation. The topic today is trash in the aquatic environment, global problem, local solutions. And again, as Derek said, I'm an associate engineer here at the City of Costa Mesa. So we just have a couple pictures here of trash on the left in its various forms, and then Upper Newport Bay on the right, which is one of our primary watersheds that the city actually drains to. Next slide. So today I'm going to be focusing on my discussion on the issue of trash and debris in the aquatic and marine environment, while focusing on stormwater as the nexus between the two. So to overview, this topic has been brought to light by a few basic observations that the scientific community has made in recent years. The first observation is that trash has become a growing presence in the aquatic environment. And while we see it here most locally in our community, the trend is not unique to Southern California, and it is truly global in scale. A second observation related to this issue is that most trash items are persistent in the environment, and especially in aquatic and marine ecosystems, they can take up to thousands of years to decompose, and some truly never decompose on a chemical scale. The third observation is that the production and use of single-use plastics has become so ubiquitous in our everyday lives. As shown in the graph on the lower left, you'll see that trend is exponential, and that the trend of growth over the last 2 decades is actually expected to increase even more so in the next 2 to 3 decades, going through to 2050, leading to even greater trash volumes that can end up in our oceans and the aquatic environment. Additionally, scientists are beginning to recognize that trash has harmful physical, biological, and chemical impacts on the aquatic ecosystems. So these can range anywhere from wildlife being entangled in trash, such as the picture you can see in your lower right of that turtle that unfortunately became ensnared in a six-pack ring. And other animals, even like whales, have been shown to ingest plastics, and they can die from starvation and from occluded digestive tracts or other causes. Lastly, and somewhat surprisingly, researchers actually continuing to emerge that focuses on the chemical impacts of trash, and in particular on microplastics, which has been shown to have linkages not only to the health of marine wildlife and ecosystems, but actually on humans as well, due to the phenomenon of bioaccumulation. So as toxic compounds build at lower levels of the food chain, as those go up the food chain, they actually increase in concentration. And so that area of research is very new and expanding, but it just goes to show you that the effects of trash extend to a wide variety of environmental and public health areas of research. Next slide. So here we just have a brief interjection for trivia. So I just wanted to, it's more so for fun. It's not really for a prize or anything like that, but just to kind of get you thinking, what do you think are the 5 most common items found during the International Coastal Cleanup Day? I'll just give you 10 or 20 seconds just to kind of think about that in your head and brainstorm. It's really just an exercise to get you thinking about common trash items. Okay, if you want to move on to the next slide, we can show the answers. So the answer is plastic cigarette butts, food wrappers, plastic beverage bottles, plastic bottle caps, and plastic straws and drink stirrers. So you'll notice a trend, basically all these items are some kind of single-use plastic item. Next, we're moving into trash sources and pathways. So I wanted to take a look at the sources and pathways of how trash makes its way into the aquatic and marine environment. So this infographic on your left shows just a few of the pathways for trash to make its way into rivers, streams, and ultimately the ocean. Some of the most common ones are disposable packaging from restaurants and fast food establishments, outdoor events, as we've all seen here at Costa Mesa at the Orange County Fair. You've probably seen like an overflowing trash receptacle. There's also the problem of intentional illegal dumping. You can see kind of in the left in that infographic, which is hard to catch at the time, but you know, we know it does happen on occasion. We'll see that near channels and highway overpasses most commonly. And in addition to accidental litter, which can be released so easily as a truck driving by or transporting uncovered loads, and even from people's car windows when they're driving or their windows rolled down. And then there's also wind-blown trash, which can originate from trash cans on windy days, we've all probably seen as well. But ultimately, each of these sources in the urban environment make their way to a catch basin, as shown here on the right. And once it's in the drainage system, they're conveyed to streams, rivers, bays, and ultimately the ocean. Next slide. So there's several features of trash that make it unique as an environmental pollutant, and it also makes it especially challenging from a stormwater management perspective when compared to other water quality constituents. For one, trash itself is comprised of hundreds and thousands actually of different types of materials. So for one, you kind of take a look at the image below, that just shows a very small glimpse of a variety of trash articles that can be found in a trash boom, which is basically a capture system that's installed in a channel to stop trash from flowing down the waterway. That can include plastic bottles, rugs, sports balls, organic debris, a gas can, styrofoam packaging, aerosol cans, paper, all kinds of different materials. And so as the stormwater management community has begun to look into this issue more closely and compare different methods by different agencies, we're noticing that some cities may measure the weight of material collected in a mass-based system, or while others may measure the volume. You know, they could be cubic yards versus tons. So that there's a kind of a disconnect amongst the stormwater community and how we're supposed to move forward and manage it on a systematic scale. And others can even measure it in a dry weight versus wet weight. So just kind of shows a little bit about some of the challenges from a management perspective. Secondly, like we saw on the prior slide, there's such a wide variety of non-point sources where these articles of trash may originate from. So from a management perspective, it makes it really challenging to implement a single solution that will address such a wide range of sources. And lastly, both of these aspects of trash, its variability in composition, as well as its diversity in terms of sources, make it difficult to evaluate the effectiveness of a BMP, or a best management practice, as we call it in the stormwater community. So it makes it difficult to understand when you do implement a new method or a system or a treatment structure, how well is it performing? Because you know, there's still so many other sources that could be contributing to the problem. So just this kind of gives you a glimpse into the management side of the trash stormwater issue. Next slide. So next up, I wanted to just briefly touch upon some of the strategies that the city does to address trash discharges in stormwater. So pictured here is a device known as a connector pipe screen. And this is one of the various systems under the category of trash capture devices. It's effectively a perforated metal sheet which goes into a catch basin. So it actually is installed within an existing catch basin. And these types of street scale trash capture systems serve to capture trash within the catch basin so that it can subsequently be removed by a maintenance crew and prevent it, basically thereby preventing its release into the storm drain system and from being conveyed through that system into receiving waters. So since these systems have additional maintenance needs, that carries an additional costs and more resources. We select we select those installation locations where anticipated trash loads are going to be the highest to get the best bang for our buck. Typically, the locations prioritized for trash capture are based on land uses, which have higher anticipated trash loads. Next slide. So next up, another practice used by the city, and one that's not probably typically associated with ocean debris, is street sweeping. In fact, one of the main reasons that cities across the country, and especially in California, routinely implement street sweeping is to fulfill the role in protecting surface water quality. So in addition to keeping roads clean and free of debris, street sweeping is actually a really important institutional BMP to remove pollutants, and in particular trash, from roadways where it would otherwise be flushed into the drainage system and end up in our receiving waters. And so what's really interesting, actually, these sweepers have advanced really significantly over the last few decades. Street sweeping as a concept has been around for over 100 years, since early days of transportation networks. But the newer systems called regenerative air sweepers, they actually blast air onto the street surface and remove additional materials from the surface. So they can sometimes get those finer microplastics and dust particles that would otherwise end up in our roadways or end up in our waterways. And so it's just kind of an interesting fact about street sweeping that you wouldn't typically associate as a ocean water quality improvement method. Other systems used by cities and counties are regional type capture systems, which can be installed into a channel or a main line, and they basically treat a much larger drainage area than a single catch basin. So these can consist of nets, trash booms, screens, hydrodynamic separators, and other structural systems to remove trash. So these do have significant maintenance costs. While they're they're large, they have significant capital costs as well, but they do offer the advantage of allowing maintenance to be just at one individual locations instead of going out to 200 different catch basins and catching a little bit of trash from each one. So next slide. So now moving on to what you can do and what we can do in Costa Mesa as a community member to improve trash outcomes in our receiving waters and in the ocean. So there's so many different things that we can do locally to improve trash outcomes. And it really benefits ocean ecosystems throughout the world, even though it's local in scale. It has impacts that are global. So the most important BMP or bus management practices that the public can really implement is stopping trash at its source control. And so it's never released into the environment. If we didn't have to install trash capture systems and maintain them, that would be much more cost effective if the issue of trash was resolved at its source. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So, but source control is always the preferred method in the stormwater world to address pollutant discharges. Simple things such as closing trash cans and dumpsters, if you're a business operator or even at your house, can have a really significant impact on how much trash is released into the environment. If you use a truck, something so simple as covering your loads can actually also have a really significant impact on the amount of trash. I'm sure you've seen the sides of freeways that get scattered with litter and debris, and much of that is not necessarily litter as people throwing it out the window, which does also happen, but much of it is actually unintentional release just because cars are driving at 70, 80 miles an hour, and that makes it very prone to release those light plastic materials that get tossed out of the back. Next, and perhaps most importantly, is being conscientious about what we buy and taking another look at our own waste streams to just see where we may be able to reduce that waste. Simple things like putting your reusable bags in your car, bringing them with you when you go to the store can actually really help lower what we see out in the ocean and improve ocean water quality. Even if you do have to use, a bag that you purchased from the store, if you forget yours, you can reuse that bag so many times. So it has more uses than once. It doesn't immediately have to go into the waste stream. And that's really kind of what we can do as individuals to address trash at its source, is look at our own waste streams. Also, it's really important to watch out for parking restrictions for street sweepers, because what may not be realized is, your car blocking that section of the street actually can have an outcome on the receiving water, because the street sweeper is no longer able to pick up that trash. And if it's not picked up, it may end up in the ocean and in our waterways. And so that's an important thing to remember when you're parking your car. Of course, reduce, reuse, recycle. That mantra always applies, in sustainability and especially here in trash management. You can take part in a beach or park cleanup, or maybe if you just even go for a walk at night, you can make it a goal to pick up a handful or 10 or 20 pieces of trash. And lastly, educate and engage with others about the issue of trash in the aquatic environment and improve awareness of this growing environmental issue. And with that, brings us to links, and that's the end of my presentation.
Great stuff, Kelly. Thank you so much. So many great takeaways in there and tips and essentially keeping our trash off of the streets, out of the gutters, so it doesn't end up in our waterways and eventually in the oceans. And as you mentioned, helps us protect ecosystems and any life forms that are in there. Biodiversity, strong biodiversity creates strong ecosystems, allows us to have great natural resources. So thank you, Kelly, for all of that. Let's move over. Speaking of natural resources, let's talk about natural resources in our backyards, parks, and community spaces. As a Costa Mesa resident, I love getting out into our parks and taking walks in the morning and at night. The lockdown here this last year has shown us the importance of these open spaces. So today I'm here with Councilmember Arliss Reynolds and Cynthia De Agosta. They'll share beautiful open spaces in Costa Mesa, how communities can be engaged. As you know, Councilmember Arliss includes improving public safety, making neighborhoods more walk and bike friendly, and enhancing our local parks and protecting the charm and creative spirit that defines Costa Mesa as her initiatives. And Cynthia De Agosta, a Harvard-trained landscape architect who's worked with national parks and communities all over the country, spent her career helping communities protect and preserve precious natural resources. Cynthia is the Fairview Park Administrator, Parks and Community Services Department of Costa Mesa. So I'll let you two take it away from here and share with us more about our open spaces here in Costa Mesa. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. I'm so inspired by this conversation already. So this is great. Happy Earth Day. And I'm coming to you from the nature and open space in my front yard today. So one of the challenges in a city, right, is balancing development with our natural spaces. The U.S. Forest Service reports that we lose over 6,000 acres every day to development across the United States. But we all know, just inherently, we know how important open space and access to nature is to not just sustainable development, but a healthy climate, air quality, our own mental health, clean water, and you'll hear later about our food systems. Next slide, please. One of the examples you've probably heard of is, in terms of impacts to our open space and native species, is the Western monarch crisis. Compared to 1980s levels, the population of Western monarchs is only 1%. And there's a lot of good activity to try to help revitalize that population. Next slide. But we are very lucky here in Costa Mesa with more than 30 parks. We have nature all around us, again, at our city parks, at beautiful Fairview Park and Canyon Park, in our backyards and in our front yards. Incredible biodiversity in this city, which we're really lucky to have. And Cynthia will talk a little bit about those places and how in the next week we can participate in a global initiative to start documenting the species in our city. Can jump to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit later. Oh, beautiful pictures. Next slide, thank you. We'll talk a little bit later about the iNaturalist app. This is something you can download on your phone and use to document nature in our city. And I'll come back and talk a little bit about, after Cynthia talks about some of the natural species in Costa Mesa, to share the City Nature Challenge 2021. Next slide. and how everyone on this call, your parents, your children, your friends, your neighbors, can all be a citizen scientist for a week starting at the end of April by participating in the City Nature Challenge. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Reynolds. I'll take it over from here for introduce a little bit of the specialties that we have here in Costa Mesa's nature. And yes, this conversation is extremely inspiring for all the work that we're doing. Fairview Park, as it's been mentioned, is one of the biggest, largest restoration efforts and parks, natural resource parks that we have in the city. 208 acres where you can enjoy nature and get involved in education and restoration that I'll talk a little bit about here. Next slide, please. I think there's one before that. Maybe we have them. No, keep back, please. I think that, oh, we lost one. I'm sorry, we lost the bird picture. Okay, so let me just talk about Fairview Park supports a rich diversity of nature, both flora and fauna. We've documented over 100 species of different avian or bird species that are out there using the park, as well as this kind of local, regional, and global biodiversity that we see out there and within the city. Next slide, please. City biologists, yeah, I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself. We lost a slide here, I'm not sure how, but I wanted to talk about the birds a little bit. We have, like I said, over 100 species that have been documented recently. We know that Fairview Park and Canyon Park and the 1,000 acres that abut the Santa Ana River here in the southern region support species that only exist in Orange County in this area and no other place in Orange County. Some of the things that you can do to get involved out at Fairview Park, we are doing bird walks. We are doing vernal pool and wetland restoration talks. So keep an eye on our website for those. Go ahead, next slide, please. And there it is. There's the bird slide. Okay, they just got a little mixed up, but these are the beautiful, some of the beautiful species that we're seeing out there right now. In fact, the one on the left is the burrowing owl, which we've started a banding program for. Burrowing owls used to actually nest in this area here, and we haven't seen nesting in a long time. So we're banding, and between here and Seal Beach, tracking the different species that are using this in the migratory corridor, at least not nesting, but in the corridor. Next slide, please. And we're also doing invasive plant removal and restoration. We have second Saturday mornings of every month that we invite you to join us. It's not only fun to get out and help protect and restore the park. Next slide, please. But the restoration events contribute to improving the habitat, and you get to hang out with some of your neighbors, and it is a fun Saturday morning to come out and help us. So I'll give it back to Councilmember Reynolds now to talk about the City Nature Challenge next week.
Thank you. So back to the City Nature Challenge and how you can all be a citizen scientist in Costa Mesa. So in 2020, last year, even despite COVID, people in over 244 cities in 40 countries across the world made more than 800,000 observations of nature during this 1-week bio blitz that we call the City Nature Challenge. Next slide. The City Nature Challenge started in 2016. It's organized by the California Academy of Sciences and the Los Angeles Natural History Museum in partnership with iNaturalist and National Geographic. It actually started in 2016, and the reason it's called a challenge was a competition between Los Angeles and San Francisco in trying to engage their communities to participate in looking for nature in the city. Next slide. So you can see that each year, the participation and observations around the world has grown. And Costa Mesa did a sort of soft entry last year in 2020, but this is our first official participation as a city. And we are the first city in Orange County to participate in the City Nature Challenge. Next slide. So I mentioned this is a competition. It's a 4-day, what we call bio blitz, where we ask everyone to go out to their parks, walk down the street, look at trees, look in your backyard, lift up rocks, peek, behind bushes, and just look for nature, whether it's interesting plant species or bugs or animals or some of the birds that Cynthia mentioned. It's about documenting nature where you live and realizing that we have so much nature in the city. You don't have to go to a national park to find nature. And all those observations contribute to this global database that scientists actually use, and they have detected through this challenge new species, and they've been also able to track the migration of species across the world. Next slide. So we invite you to participate in the City of Costa Mesa's City Nature Challenge for the first time this year. And again, be a citizen scientist and document biodiversity in our city. Next slide. You'll find some information on our website. If you look for the City Nature Challenge 2021, the challenge starts on Monday, April 30th. And you can find some FAQs and some other instructions on that website. Next slide. The key tool that you need is the iNaturalist app. Not sure if you can see this. So you just download iNaturalist on your phone. These are some photos from observations made last year. You just log into iNaturalist. There's some really simple instructions on how to take a picture and upload. So the goal is to just get out there and start taking photos. Last slide, next slide. Thank you. And then on May 10th this year, the organizers will post the results. So we'll see how many observations, species, participants, and hopefully Costa Mesa can get on the leaderboard in terms of participation. Next slide.
Okay, so there are other ways for us to get involved. Again, these slides got a little bit confused here, but I'll start with Love Costa Mesa Day in May 15th. You can get out there, a number of public service opportunities that day, and you can look on their website to sign up for being engaged in the citywide activities that'll be going on. Next slide. And then the other efforts of the environment. I just want to mention the many organizations locally that provide opportunities for you to get involved to help protect and preserve our places of nature. These are some of the groups that we are working with. And at Fairview Park, we're partnering with some of these programs. And I want to give a shout out to all the volunteers that are helping. We vow in 2022 to return to an actual Earth Day at the park, as we have done in the past with these organizations. So this year it had to be virtual, but we'll do it again. Next slide, please. But probably, as Councilmember Reynolds has said, the best way for you to get involved right now in helping us is to get involved in the City Nature Challenge next week. Next slide, please. And let's put Costa Mesa on the map for protecting our biodiversity. Thank you.
Wow, that was so great. Thank you both. While you were talking, I've already downloaded my iNaturalist app. I'm ready to go and participate in the challenge. I'm always excited. Actually, I get really excited by all the trees and the many birds that seem to be out since this last year. I feel like there are more bird song. So it's really amazing. So I'm looking forward to capturing them all. So thank you both for sharing all of that with us. The City Nature Challenge, the Love Costa Mesa Day, those are a great initiatives. So thank you both for what you're doing. Okay, we'll jump on to our final panelist of the day here. We are talking about ending food insecurity in Costa Mesa through food recovery kitchens and education. We've got many who are experiencing homelessness and food insecurity in Costa Mesa, and food waste is actually a big climate driver as well. So it's something that needs to be addressed. So instead of throwing away food that ends up in a landfill and converts to methane, how can we find a way to donate that food so that it goes to those that need it the most? Today I'm with Alexandra Yates. She has worked in the hospitality industry for over 15 years in various positions, from dishwasher to chef de cuisine, and from server to general manager. She's opened and operated award-winning restaurants. She's pursuing her PhD. As she's the program director and full-time faculty member in the food service management program at Orange Coast College. So I know you're busy, Alexandra. Thanks for being here. Go ahead and take it away. We'll let you present what you've got. We're excited to hear it.
Of course. Thank you so much, Derek, and everyone for having me on. Next slide, please. So I have a couple questions to ask everyone, and I know that we can't have you answer, but just think of the answer that you would choose. We need to grow more food to end hunger. And this is going to be answered throughout the entire presentation. Next slide. So what percent of food never gets eaten worldwide? Let me give you some percentages. Is it 50%, 10%, 85%, or 30%? So about a third of the food produced on on the planet goes to waste. Waste happens in every link of our food supply chain, from the fruit that never makes it off the farm to the vegetable you forgot in your fridge. So another question is, what food gets tossed the most, right? So I'm going to give you some options. Would it be milk, fruits and vegetables and tubers, hamburgers, or cereal? So about 45%, almost half of all fruits, vegetables, and tubers like potatoes, are wasted each year. Luckily, there's a lot you can do to make them last longer. So let's look at potatoes. I love potatoes. Absolutely love them. Probably have them every other day. Right? You can please store them in a dark place. They'll last a lot longer. If they've been around for a while, you can cook them and freeze them in portions. They do very well in the freezer. You can roast the skins in a little bit of salt, pepper, and oil and make a nice crunchy snack. That's one of my kids' favorites. And if they do start to sprout, you can even cut them and plant them. Currently, we're growing some potatoes in our backyard, and they've just started to sprout. So my kids are extremely excited. Bananas and apples are some of the most wasted fruit out there. You can freeze both of them and use them later in baked goods, or from our family, we use them in smoothies all the time. Did you know, though, that you can eat banana peels? You can blend, fry, bake, and even boil them. The riper the banana, the sweeter the peel becomes. One of our students actually made banana peel pasta, and it tasted absolutely amazing. It was beautiful as well. Next slide. So another question, what food item, when wasted, represents the biggest waste of energy? So your options would be milk, poultry, corn, or beef. So the answer is beef. It takes about 25 times more energy to produce a calorie of beef than to produce 1 calorie of corn for people to eat. Animal proteins tend to require more energy, land, and water to produce that than a plant protein. Next slide. So what about how much we spend? So how much money does the average American spend on food per year that never makes it into our meals? So some numbers you can choose from: $200, $300, $500, or $800 per year that you would be wasting. The answer is the average American spends about $456 on wasted food per year. So in total, American consumers waste about $144 billion worth of food that goes straight into the landfills. Next slide. So is ugly food bad food? So think about that. Look at this picture. This food is all deemed ugly on this slide. Is it bad? Right? I hope your answer is the same as mine. Of course it's not, right? Our need to beautify everything has carried over to our produce, right? When we, next time you're at the grocery store, really look at the produce. If you had a choice, would you choose a better looking product, even if the nutritional value is the exact same, right? When I go into the grocery store or the farmer's markets or anywhere that I go, I look at the apple that has a scuff or an orange. I usually take that because I know that no one else would. And because it's not beautiful to them in their eyes, and it tastes exactly the same. Right? We think, or before genetically modified food, GMOs, right, the majority of all of our produce had scuff marks and was far from perfect, but all taste the same. So next slide. So just some more statistics on food waste. So worldwide, we waste 1.4 billion tons every year. In the United States, it's approximately 38 million tons. And just in the food service industry, it's 20 billion pounds. And this is all pre-COVID. When we look at food production, half of our land goes to food production, 80% of our water consumption goes to our food production, 10% of our energy budget, and 16% of our country's methane emissions come from our food production. And so that slide that I had regarding how much money we waste, bringing it to a percentage is 40% of food in America goes uneaten. So when you go to the grocery store, right, you have 5 bags of groceries, right? Before you enter your car, take 1 bag and throw it in the trash can before you even leave the parking lot. And that's about 20 pounds of food per person every month that we waste. Okay. So would we really do that when we leave a grocery store? I would say that that's absurd, but we forget that vegetable in the refrigerator, or the leftovers that we took home from the restaurant but we decided not to eat. Next slide. So 1 in how many Americans do you believe are at risk for hunger? So the answer is 6. And this is pre-COVID, 1 in 6 Americans. Next slide, please. So what is food insecurity, right? The World Health Organization defined it as lacking access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food to maintain healthy life every single day. Worldwide, approximately 1 in 9. And the previous slide said 1 in 6 Americans, but because of COVID, now it's 1 in 4. Next slide, please. So now let's bring it to Orange County. Right? Let's look at some statistics before COVID. Right? We're a little over 3 million people, and about 300,000 people in Orange County are food insecure. It's over 10%. Over 16% of our children aren't guaranteed 3 meals a day. They don't know where their food's coming from. Next slide, please. Now, bringing it closer to home for me and a lot of us is looking at Orange Coast College before COVID. Our population was approximately 23,000, and 1 in 5 students were food insecure, were deemed food insecure. 51% of students on our campus associate themselves with being food insecure in the past 30 days from when the survey was taken. Next slide, please. So did you know that there are over 400 pantries located in Orange County? That's amazing. But what is the food that's at the pantries? Where does the food come from? Right? You may ask, how do we get there, or where are they located? And what type of food is there? Next slide, please. So let's talk about what is food recovery. So since 2015, Abound Food Care, which was formerly Waste Not OC, and its partners have recovered nearly 70 million pounds of food. And of that 70 million pounds, in 2019, 20 million pounds was recovered. And in 2020, 23 million pounds. Okay. There's a massive amount of bulk excess edible food that's available from large-scale distributors to growers to processors and more. Next slide, please. So some common areas or definitions of food recovery and the types of food recovery. The first one is field gleaning, right? And when I first got into food recovery, I had no idea what field gleaning was. I thought it was glamming up a farm, but field gleaning is collecting crops from farmers' fields that have already been mechanically harvested. And the farmers won't harvest those fruits or vegetables because it's not profitable for them. Right? They're going to be losing money. So a field gleaning is a great way to help the farmer out and also get amazing produce. We have perishable food rescue or salvage, and that's the collection of perishable produce from wholesale and retail sources, so our grocery stores. And then we have district food rescue, and that's the collection of prepared food from food service industry, so our restaurants, our hotels, bars, and non-perishable food collection, which is the collection of processed foods with a long shelf life. Next slide, please. So we have the food recovery hierarchy and the pyramid. A lot of people say, oh, the pyramid's upside down, and that's exactly what we want to see, right? The 3 R's, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle. The first R is reduce. So that's what we really want to try to do. We want to reduce our purchasing, right? Reuse as much as we can, right? And then recycle. So we have source reduction, then feeding hungry people, utilizing that recovered food and helping our communities, and taking that food, if you can't take it, food insecure to animal feeds, and then industrial use for anaerobic digestion, and then composting. And the last thing that you should do is put your food in the landfills or in your trash. I know in Costa Mesa, it's amazing that we have our 3 bins, and we have our bin strictly for grain waste. And that's where we should all put our kitchen scraps if we do have leftovers. A misconception is the garbage disposal is a great way to get rid of your food, and that's by far not what we want to do. We want to compost it or place it in vessels for anaerobic digestion versus grind it down and have it go through our pipes. Next slide, please. So let's bring this to Orange Coast College. When I started here 3 years ago, and I was so excited to take over the program. And I went to our pantry on campus, and I said, "What do you need?" And they said, "Alex, we need more food and better, more nutritious food. We have a culinary program, a baking and pastry program, a nutrition and dietetics program, and a food service management program that's growing into more programs as well." So I said, "Well, we have all these students and community members that want to learn. And so let's take this amazing, wholesome surplus food and create it into meals for not just our students on our campus, but our community who are in need." So here's just a few pictures. And next slide, please. Here's a couple pictures of our pantry on campus. These pictures were taken before COVID. We are still closed. Our intern students are actually on campus currently right now in the kitchen right behind me, and they are utilizing recovered food and packaging it for our community. Next slide, please. So the food service management program, we created OCC Recovery Kitchen, and our primary goal is first to feed our students, but then to feed our community in need. And since COVID hit, we have produced over 200,000 meals, and that we've been able to give to our students, our community members, anyone who's in need. And so if anyone knows anyone, please have them reach out to me. But additionally, we've been able to recover over 600,000 pounds of food that would have gone to the landfills. And we've been able to repurpose, extend the shelf life, and then produce nutritious meals. Next slide, please. So here are just some pictures during COVID. We moved off-site for a little bit. The pictures of the vegetables that we harvested, I have my little kids in there. And then Chef Amy Wilson, she's my partner in the Recovery Kitchen, and her daughter. This is the community gardens at Orange Coast College, and we have an amazing horticulture program, and our community members also grow food. And we were able to harvest all this amazing produce and utilize it in our meals. And going forward, we'll be doing this more so when everyone comes back to campus. Next slide, please. A couple more pictures of some meals that we just recently did. All the meals are vacuum sealed in microwave and oven safe trays. Next slide. And if you can click the picture with the students in it, if you can click that picture, it should be a little video. Not sure if you can click it. There you go. So these are our students in our kitchen this last couple months, creating these boxes for our pantry and for our community members with about 10 frozen meals in them. And we're able to distribute them all frozen, vacuum sealed, or with tamper-proof containers. Next slide, please. And then a couple more pictures of students packaging all of our meals. And then the last slide, next slide, please. And then the last slide here, we have these beautiful pumpkins that we recovered from, we gleaned off a farm in Irvine, the Montecero Farms. We got all their pumpkins after Halloween that they didn't sell. We were able to use it, and we made over 600 meals, vegan, vegetarian, and animal protein meals as well. So It's a great experience to teach our students, but also have our once the campus opens again, have our community members coming for workshops to learn about how to use recovered food and how to compost. We do have an amazing composter on campus that I'm excited to start, that will be able to make compost not just for our campus, but for the community, utilizing all of the food waste that we have in our kitchens and our cafeteria and on our housing. So it's really exciting to really help the change and food insecurity on not just our campus, but in our community. So thank you.
Well, Alexandra, thank you so much. Such, first of all, staggering statistics, really, really hard to watch and realize, but thank you for putting all of that waste to good use. And thank you for sharing your information so people can follow along with what you guys are doing, reach out if they can help or support or get involved. So thank you to everybody. One, thank you to everybody that showed up, and thanks for being here today. Thank you for all of our community members doing great work on Earth Day and all year long. I want to let you know that if for some reason, if you've got any other comments or questions, you can feel free to send them over to the city. There is a sustainability@costamesaca.gov website. And actually, I'll share this real quick so you can see this final slide here. Also, make sure that you go to the Costa Mesa website, sustainability section, to see all the different resources that the city has to offer. And keep an eye out too, coming soon, the city's first annual sustainability report for 2020. So there will be a lot of great information in there, but hopefully today you learned something, took away some advice, tips, you can get involved, ways to get involved, that City Nature Challenge, the Love Costa Mesa Day, get involved with Orange Coast College, drive your EV, try it out. But either way, do your part today on Earth Day. And thank you so much for being here. Unless there's any other closing comments from anybody from the city, I'll leave it at that. I think that'll be a wrap. Councilmember Arliss, thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. And enjoy your Earth Day. Get out there and do something great for the Earth, for your community, and for future generations. Thanks, everyone.